Hello there everybody and welcome to the channel. My name is Azurblade and welcome to my first ever ranking. A boss ranking for Dark Souls. Yeah, we're starting off strong with this one. I let's played this game several months ago and I figured as one last send off to this game, I would do a boss ranking video, so I'm ranking them based off of 4 criteria. The first one will be difficulty, which is how difficult the boss is, which is going to be highly subjective because I find bosses easy that some find difficult and vice versa. The second one will be lore, how interesting I find their lore. Third one will be design, which is how cool I think they look as well as how well designed their boss fight is. So that one's going to be fun. And the fourth one will be overall fun, which is how fun I find the boss. Now, obviously my opinion's going to be different from yours, so if you don't like that, then that's fair. But if you're gonna be rude and tell me my opinion's invalid, then fuck off, your opinion's no more valid than mine is. Get the fuck over yourself. With that out of the way, let's get started with number 26. And here we are at the bottom of the list. Number 26, the Bed of Bullshit, aka the Bed of Chaos. Truly, what can I say for this boss that hasn't already been said? The boss runback is brutal, the boss itself is a terrible representation of the Witch of Izalith lore, and doing parkour in a Dark Souls game that isn't Elden Ring is a recipe for disaster, and the sweeping branches sending you into the pits of despair, waiting to claim your sorry existence, all adds up to a boss fight that will make you want to break everything in your immediate vicinity. The only saving grace, if you pardon the Elden Ring pun, is when you destroy the runes on either side, your progress gets saved and you won't have to destroy that same rune in each subsequent run until you defeat the boss. Usually when I play this game, I always equip the Grass Crest Shield and Darkroot Basin so I can get my stamina faster, which will help your ability to block for this fight so the branches don't send you back down into the pits. I just think it's very telling that the developers gave you a checkpoint for this boss fight, when to my knowledge, no other boss fight in the series really does this. So Bed of Chaos rightfully claims its spot at the bottom of the pecking order. This fight is trash. At number 25 on today's list, we have the Moonlight Butterfly. This spot is also not that surprising, most likely. If you use any form of casting or archery, this fight will be over in a minute or less. But if you're using just melee, you'll be stuck waiting around, dodging attacks from a boss that cannot be hit until it flies down to rest and replenish its magic and HP by munching on the moss growing on the bridge. The boss does look pretty though, so it at least has that going for it. And there is some lore about it being an experiment created by Seath the Scaleless that managed to escape Duke's archives. But other than that, this boss is a total snooze fest, so I think it's rightfully placed at number 25. And at number 24, we have the Stray Demon, the first of the Asylum Demon trio. His moveset is almost identical to the aforementioned boss, but he has an AoE move that can and will deplete your entire health bar if you're not careful. Not to mention the forced fall damage every time you attempt this boss. It is downright unfair because if you don't have that much HP, it can one-shot you. I've had it happen to me before, so it's asinine game design right there. The only things about this boss fight that are memorable is him having Iron Golem's theme, who mind you is a much better boss than this overweight slob, so he really doesn't deserve it. You seeing this guy when you first walk out of your cell in the asylum is also another memorable thing, along with the fact that he drops a Titanite slab and you kill him. But if those are the only things that a boss has going for it, then I'm not going to give it very good marks. So I think number 24 is a perfect place for this stupid boss. I really don't care for this thing. At number 23, we have the Demon Fire Sage, the second of the Asylum Demon trio. His move pool is pretty much identical to the Stray Demon, who is a reskin of the first boss, so it's a reskin of a reskin. great. That being said, he gets higher marks because he actually looks slightly different thanks to the admittedly cool flame makeover, and he has some pretty neat lore about him being one of the last masters of the original fire arts. It's got some really cool implications. And I also gave him half a point in fun factor because watching him rush towards you through all the dead tree roots is oddly satisfying. But other than that, this boss has very little going for it and is more of a speed bump than the memorable boss it rightfully should have been. It's a shame too, because I feel like this one could have been something special. At number 22, we have the Gaping Dragon. I'm not too wild about this boss fight, to be perfectly honest. He looks absolutely repulsive, and the area leading up to him is pretty rough too. The biggest thing I would worry about with this boss fight is the channeler that can buff his defense and attacking power if you don't take care of him on the top floor. If you fail to take him out before attempting this dragon, you are going to die a horrible death because he will output insane amounts of damage and barely take any, so don't even bother if you don't take care of the channeler. It's not all bad though. His music is very fitting for such a grotesque looking monstrosity, and if you cut his tail off, then you get the Dragon King Great Axe, which is one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. Seriously, if you haven't used this thing, give it a try. It's incredible. When you get his health low enough, he'll also have a brand new attack where he'll start vomiting acid all around his body. And if you stay in that acid, then it's gonna eat through your weapon and armor durability. And at that point, you're gonna be swinging around paper mache weapons that don't do frick all for damage. And if your armor breaks, well, that's gonna be even worse. So if you don't want that happening, then stay away from him. There is some lore about this guy being so hungry that his entire body somehow turned into a stomach. So my question is, how frickin' long did this guy go without eating for him to turn into a Devil Joe reject? Seriously, dude, give this guy a meal already. He clearly needs it. At number 21, we have Gravelord Nito. The most disappointing boss in the entire game for me personally. Nito's supposed to be one of the 4 great lords, beings that stood out even amongst the powerful knights Gwyn had in his army during the war against the Everlasting Dragons. His power over death and pestilence sound extremely dangerous, especially in a game where the main gimmick is your character dying over and over and over again until they finally manage to achieve victory. But sadly, Nito doesn't really use any of those awesome looking powers we hear about or see in the first cutscene. I always believed that Nito was the most powerful of the 4 lords we fight in order to feed the Lord Vessel in order to go to the kiln of the First Flame. But his boss fight really doesn't paint him in a good light. Instead of using powerful hexes and pestilence type magic to take you down, he just moves over like a lumbering oaf, slowly attacking you with a sword that truthfully doesn't do all that much damage. The real challenge comes from the giant skeletons that help him fight you. At least that would be the case if Nito didn't nuke them all so frequently. And to top it all off, you're forced to take fall damage before you even go into the boss fight. So if you manage to fight your way past all the skeletons and other treacherous terrain in Tomb of the Giants, which by the way was an awful area to boot, you could potentially die from fall damage if you don't have any more Estus or Humanities to heal yourself. Yes, I know the tiny skeletons can drop Humanities, but from a first time player's perspective, they won't know that, and if they try and drop down that little boss arena, they will die from that fall sometimes, and that's a really awful experience. The last boss fight in the 20s, and the last fight I don't too much care for. Dark Sun Gwendolyn spends the entire fight teleporting away from you and pelting you with arrows and magic. It's not my cup of tea personally, but I do know some people that personally enjoy this fight. He is the last remaining deity in Anor Londo because Guinevere, his sister, the one who gave you the Lord Vessel, is an illusion casted by Gwendolyn. if you destroy the illusion of his sister, the sun will disappear, and so will most of the enemies in Anor Londo, implying that his illusions are so powerful that they can still hurt you despite not being real, which is crazy to think about. That being said, the proper way to describe him as an enemy would be a glass cannon. He can dish out a bunch of damage, but is as durable as a wet noodle. It is admittedly somewhat fun bobbing and weaving from pillar to pillar, avoiding magic and arrows like a badass, but when you realize that's the entire boss fight, it makes it feel a bit shallow in my opinion. But don't worry, because the reward waiting for you at the end of the hallway is worth it. So at least Gwyndolin has some good rewards waiting for you if you do choose to fight him. At number 19, we have Pinwheel, the most entertaining speed bump in the series. I only have this small loop of footage due to killing him so quickly, so you'll have to settle for this. As a boss, Pinwheel fails in every conceivable category due to his absurdly low health pool. What he intends to do is create clones and rain down several fireballs that are meant to overwhelm you with sheer numbers. But you can kill him so fast that he can't even do anything most of the time. He managed to steal secrets from Nito and Tomb of the Giants and escape with his life, which should be impressive if it wasn't for how crap Nito's boss fight is in this game. I've heard stories of people that decided to fight him at the beginning of the game after escaping the asylum, and even then they say he's not too bad. So despite how bad I'm making Pinwheel sound here, I do get a great deal of joy watching his health bar drop like a sack of bricks every time I hit him with a greatsword. And that's what shot him up to number 19 alone, so great job, Pinwheel. You being so crap managed to elevate you above several bosses in this game. Well done. At number 18, we have the Ceaseless Discharge. This is a perfect example of a boss fight that isn't too great, but is elevated extremely high by its lore. This poor monstrosity is constantly oozing lava out of his body, causing him to be in constant pain because, you know, lava is frickin' hot. He was given the orange charred ring by one of his sisters in order to ease his suffering, but he ended up dropping the dang thing, which caused the centipede demon to come into existence. When you enter his boss arena, he is docile at first, only staring at you and not attacking, which is admittedly strange because such a large monster in Izalith, where all the demons originated, you'd think he'd attack you on sight. But no, he'll only attack you when you loot an unassuming body in the corner, which, oh, what a twist of fate. It was his dead sister. So the only reason he's attacking you is because you defiled the grave of the one person who actually tried to help him. What a horrible thing to do, you frickin' monster. Unbelievable. And there's also some interesting lore painting him as the original demon of Lost Izalith. It used to be the demon Fire Sage, but Miyazaki confirmed in an interview years later that it was a mistranslation, and it was actually the Ceaseless Discharge, so that's cool. At number 17, we have Seath the Scaleless. This boss is pretty meh, to be honest. He's a crystal dragon who has immortality through his primordial crystal. It sounds neat on paper, but the fact that the dumbass can destroy his own crystal really paints him in a dumb light. Once his crystal is destroyed, he will be stunned for several seconds, giving you plenty of time to cut off his tail and get the ever-iconic Moonlight Greatsword. The absolute most infuriating thing about this boss fight is the fact that you have to die during the first encounter with him, because he will not take any damage from you, but he can curse you, so make sure you have a rare ring of sacrifice before going in there. Otherwise, you will not only lose your souls, but your HP will be cut in half until you can break the curse. And even when you are fighting him, he has that attack that covers the entire ground in curse crystals, so make sure your humanity counter isn't too low when you fight him. Otherwise, your curse resistance will be so low that you'll get cursed consistently. Now, some neat lore about him is that he was not born with the scales that gave the other dragons their immortality. and he coveted that immortality for himself. So in a fit of rage, he betrayed his own kin and defected to Gwyn and his army, revealing the dragon's secrets to their immortality, thus revealing that Gwyn's lightning could strip them of their scales, which will allow them to be killed. So many things in this series now and in the future are a direct result of this dragon's mad pursuit of knowledge, so I really wish I could rank him higher on this list, but there's just not enough about his fight that I really enjoy that will justify me placing him any higher than 17. I just think it's really telling of the second half of this game when 3 of the 4 Lord Souls are in the top 10 lowest ranks for this list. It's really a shame. And at number 16, we have the Taurus Demon, who was my pick for the most forgettable boss in this entire game. He's got a pretty cool entrance, and fighting him on a narrow bridge with the sun in the background is a nice aesthetic choice. Truth be told, this fight just feels like one last reminder of all the things you learned leading up to the Asylum Demon, because you can plunge attack this guy for good damage, and if you open the door in Undead Burg with the Master Key, then you get Lightning Pine Resin, which you can apply to your weapon to do absurd amounts of damage. To be honest, this fight feels like a total nothing burger that doesn't add much to the game, except for all the creative ways people manage to die fighting this guy. That's probably the most memorable thing about him. So number 16 feels like a decent place for this guy. At number 15, we have the Asylum Demon. This is a good example of how to do a tutorial boss for a game like this. Typically, most players will attack him with a broken straight sword right out the gate and realize you're not supposed to defeat him pretty quickly. So you're gonna do what you should reasonably do in a situation like that and run away. After that first harrowing experience, you will spend the next 10 minutes fighting around the outskirts of the asylum, getting the rest of your gear that you start with, and learning the basic mechanics that will carry you throughout this grueling game. And to top it all off, your reward for finishing the tutorials is a free hit on the boss that will do a massive amount of damage. Just don't stay idle too long, or Dark Souls will reveal the true extent of its punishing nature, and the boss will jump up and destroy the platform you're standing on and get a massive hit on you instead. This is the first boss in the game that I consider to be alright, so they're only gonna get better from here. At number 14, we have the Centipede Demon. That intro was my first ever exposure to this boss, so the fun factor for me is greatly skewed. Thanks, Mike, you really did it, didn't you? This fight takes place in a field of lava with only a few small areas to safely stand on, so you gotta watch your footing, otherwise you'll be burnt to a crisp. And if you're not careful, you can get caught on his body, and he'll drag your sorry ass into the lava, and if that happens, you're gonna most likely die, so watch out for that. This T-Rex looking monster was created from the orange charred ring that the Ceaseless Discharge dropped, so it's really neat that this fight links back to him and the Witches of Izalith in that way. You can cut off his tail and get the ring early on, which will make fighting him much easier if you don't defeat him the first time, which most of the time for me isn't a problem, but I can understand why some people would struggle. I definitely enjoy this fight the most out of all the bosses in Izalith. This one is definitely my pick for the best one, but it's not that big of an accomplishment considering how bad the competition of it is. But don't be mistaken, I can still consider it a decent fight. It is middle of the pack after all, so I think he sits properly at number 14, so well done, Centipede Demon, and congratulations on making it to Night Rain. And at number 13 on today's list, we have Dragonbreed Priscilla, the final boss of the lower half of this list. She's one of only 2 bosses in the game that won't attack you unless provoked. That makes her stand out amongst all the other bosses in the game. If you do decide to attack her like the monster that you are, she will turn invisible, and the best way to track her is by looking for her footprints in the snow. Once you pinpoint where she is, you can attack her quite easily. Once she suffers enough damage, she will deactivate her invisibility, making her that much easier to deal with. She has a tail, which means you can cut it off for another tail weapon, and the best way to do that is to attack her with the strongest attack you have in your arsenal before you provoke her, because she will not attack you unless you attack her first. So if you do enough damage, you can sever off her tail with a single attack. She used to be imprisoned in the Northern Undead Insane Asylum, but was later relocated to the Painted World of Ariamis due to the gods fearing her life hunt powers. I just think it's really sad that the gods considered her very existence a taboo just because of the circumstances surrounding her birth. Priscilla never had a chance to live a normal life and was forced to live in total isolation until eventually we just make our way into her world, kill all of the residents that she's watching over, and eventually her. You're a freaking jerk! What an absolute monster! And that's the ending of the first half of this ranking list. I'm sure there was some interesting choices here that you didn't think of putting where they were put. But that's the beauty of these ranking videos. Each one is different. Well, they should be different. I don't like it when, oh, someone just forms an opinion because someone else popular made that opinion. So that's why I did this list the way I did it. I wanted to have my own take of these bosses out there in the world. So I hope you guys enjoyed my very opinionated list so far, and look forward to the other 12 bosses being talked about tomorrow. And stick around at the end of that video because I will have an announcement relating to something that is in the works. With that out of the way, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.